Hare Krishna. Today is Ekādaṣī and we are preparing lunch at the ashram. We thought we'd videotape this for anyone who wants to learn how to make a very simple recipe of vegetable stew. We usually keep our kitchen fairly clean and we wash our veggies, we wash ourselves before we cook. Today's meal is going to be some cabbage, 2 medium-sized potatoes, a couple of tomatoes, 2 eggplants about this size, maybe half of this broccoli, and some pumpkin which I've already chopped up. This should feed about 5 people comfortably. And apart from that, we're going to use quinoa. So today being Ekādaṣī, we fast from grains and beans. Ekādaṣī is the 11th day of the lunar cycle. So twice a month we fast from grains and beans, which means no rice, no bread, no pulses like dals or lentils, no string beans, garbanzo beans, stuff like that. So in order to get a complete protein on Ekādaṣī, we use quinoa, which is actually a seed. So it can be had on Ekādaṣī. Another option is buckwheat or kasha that you can use. Of course, you can also drink milk, which gives you a full protein on Ekādaṣī. So, cooking the vegetable stew is very, very simple. All you got to do, the basic principle is you chop vegetables up into pieces, put them in a pot with some ghee and spices and make it hot, and come back after 25 minutes and it's done. So we're going to first just chop our veggies and here we go. You want to make sure you wash your veggies. You never know what kind of pesticides have been sprayed upon them in the fields. So keep your veggies nice and clean. Certain kinds of vegetables, like cabbage, it's better to chop them up first and put them in a colander and then wash them under running water. We prefer to leave the skins on the potatoes. They have a lot of nutrients, so you want to make sure you really wash the potatoes well. The smaller you chop your potatoes, the faster they cook. So chop them appropriately according to your taste and the time that you have to cook. So once we have all our veggies chopped up, the next thing is to dump them in a pot with some ghee and spices. Most of the spices we use can be got at any Indian store. And this is our spice cupboard. We have hing, which is also called asafoetida, turmeric, salt, cayenne. Cayenne not to be found at most Indian stores. You can get them at any health food store or grocery store should have it. Cilantro seeds, amchur, which is dry mango powder. Back there we have some black pepper and coriander powder up here. So once you have yourself well stocked up with spices, then cooking gets a lot easier because you have all the ingredients with you. For today's dish, we've put together this set of spices. We've taken a dessert spoon, and this is about a 1/4 spoon of asafoetida, 1.5 dessert spoons of coriander powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, a couple of pinches of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne, and a teaspoon of cilantro seeds. We use a pot with a fairly heavy bottom that prevents burning of food at the bottom. So Usually if the pots are very thin and have a thin bottom, food gets burnt a lot quicker. So this is the nice pot with a nice heavy base. We warm it up a little bit to make sure there's no water left in the pot, because once we add the oil or the ghee, if there's water in there, then it starts to splutter, and that's not such a nice thing. So our pot is fairly dry, we've wiped it dry, and we're going to add some ghee to it. And this is completely up to your taste. So the ghee has been warming up on a fairly low flame. We want to make sure it heats up uniformly. And we're also going to add some cumin seeds, whole cumin seeds. And the way to tell when the ghee is ready is when, if you throw in a few cumin seeds, they start to fizzle and splutter a little bit. So this is not happening yet, so the ghee is not yet warm. Let's put in the cumin seeds. And you can see them splutter and fizzle. It means the ghee is ready. Keep the flame low. So now we add our spices. So ghee is a great vehicle for spices. It really absorbs all the flavors. So that's why I like putting my spices into the ghee along with the salt. And just mix it around. Make sure the ghee gets the flavor of all the spices. So you have to be careful not to let the spices burn. Some people sometimes they mix the spices in a small cup of water and make a paste with it, and then add the paste to the ghee to ensure that the spices don't get burned. Or you can do that with yogurt and make a small thin paste. And now it's time to add our veggies. Okay. So the first thing we add is the vegetables that take the longest to cook. In this case, it's going to be the potatoes and pumpkins. So we add the potatoes and pumpkins, and we mix them up well. Let the spice ghee envelop them, and let them soak in the spices of the ghee. And we let this cook for about a minute or two. And we raise it to a slow simmer. This has been cooking for about a minute. Now we add the eggplant and broccoli. And we let it stay on top, we don't mix it in, because they require less heat to cook. And on top of that, we add the cabbage, chopped cabbage. We add about a cup of water. That's the sound of the water fighting with the ghee. The water gives it, it evens out the heat in the pot, and everything cooks more uniformly. And the steam also helps to cook the food. Once you've added the water, you cover it and let it simmer. And every 5 to 10 minutes, we can open it up and just stir it in to make sure nothing is stuck at the bottom and nothing is getting burnt. And we just wait now. And after about 10 minutes, we add the tomatoes, because the tomatoes, if they cook too much, they become just a big mush. So we like to have our tomatoes retain their form. So we add the tomatoes at the very end. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. This has been simmering. It's getting nice and nicely cooked. Just check nothing is burned at the bottom. The pumpkins are getting soft. The potatoes are still a little hard, so we'll have to cook a little longer. So this is about a good time to add in the tomatoes and let them sit on top. As the tomatoes cook, they'll get softer and they'll release water. You cover it and let it simmer for another 10 minutes. So it's been about 10 minutes since we added the tomatoes, or tomatoes if you prefer. And we're taking a look if everything's cooked. The potatoes seem just about right. The eggplant and broccoli are well cooked. The tomatoes have gotten soft, and the pumpkins are also soft. So at this point we're going to add in the quinoa with some water. So as you mentioned earlier, quinoa is a seed and it can be had on Ekādaṣī, and it's a complete protein by itself. And quinoa cooks much like rice. It cooks in hot water and it expands. So we're going to add a little water, maybe half a cup or so of water.